guys, this is Mishel, Deception Bytes, and I am bringing you something a little bit different today. Q has not posted actually for the last couple days, and I'm watching today to see if he does. But I don't know, could be taking some time off, he, she, they, or perhaps there's things going on behind the scenes that are so important that this is the least of their priorities, posting on 8chan. So I don't know, but I did want to bring this information about Snowden. Now, I was under the impression that Snowden was a good guy, and I think probably a lot of people are under that impression. So this is something someone sent to me. It looks like it's been released. It was formerly, I would assume, top secret because it has top secret at the top and then it's crossed out. So it is on a government website. So I don't know, I haven't heard of anyone talking about this, but perhaps there has been, but I haven't heard anyone talking about this. So anyway, I thank you for that person for sending me this, and I apologize that it's taken me so long to address it. But this is a review of the unauthorized disclosures of former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden. And it's the U.S. House of Representatives, dated September 15th, 2016. So let me make this bigger so that you guys can follow along with me. And let's look at this. Now, the first part is kind of a summation of everything that the report contains, so I'm going to read that to you. Executive summary. In June 2013, former National Security Agency, NSA, contractor Edward Snowden perpetrated the largest and most damaging public release of classified information in U.S. intelligence history. In August 2014, the chairman and ranking member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence directed committee staff to carry out a comprehensive review of the unauthorized disclosures. The aim of the review was to allow the committee to explain to other members of Congress and, where possible, the American people, how this breach occurred, what the U.S. government knows about the man who committed it, and whether the security shortfalls it highlighted had been remedied. Okay. Over the next 2 years, committee staff requested hundreds of documents from the intelligence community, participated in dozens of briefings and meetings with the intelligence community personnel, conducted several interviews with key individuals with knowledge of Snowden's background and actions, and traveled to NSA Hawaii to visit Snowden's last 2 work locations. The review focused on Snowden's background, how he was able to remove more than 1.5 million classified documents from secure NSA networks, what the 1.5 million documents contained, and the damage their removal caused to national security. The committee's review was careful not to disturb any criminal investigation or future prosecution of Snowden, who had remained in Russia since he fled there on June 23, 2013. Accordingly, the committee did not interview individuals whom the Department of Justice identified as possible witnesses at Snowden's trial, including Snowden himself, nor did the committee request any matters that may have occurred before a grand jury. Instead, the intelligence community provided the committee with access to other individuals who possessed substantially similar knowledge as the possible witnesses. Similarly, rather than interview Snowden's NSA co-workers and supervisors directly, committee staff interviewed intelligence community personnel who had reviewed reports of interviews with Snowden's co-worker and supervisors. The committee remains hopeful that Snowden will return to the United States to face justice. The bulk of the committee's 37-page review, and along with this page, this report is 38 pages. The bulk of the committee's don't worry, I'm not going to read all 37 pages because that would just be insane. The bulk of the committee's 37-page review, which includes 237 footnotes, must remain classified to avoid causing further harm to national security. However, the committee has made a number of unclassified findings. These findings demonstrate that the public narrative popularized by Snowden and his allies is rife with falsehoods, exaggerations, and crucial omissions, a pattern that began before he stole 1.5 million sensitive documents. First, Snowden caused tremendous damage to national security, and the vast majority of the documents he stole have nothing to do with programs impacting individual privacy interests. They instead pertain to military, defense, and intelligence programs of great interest to America's adversaries. See, I didn't know that. And that's a game changer to me, because I was under the impression that this was all information that was impacting our individual privacy. That's what I was made to believe. And it wasn't. Instead, it pertained to military, defense, and intelligence programs, and of the kind that would be very beneficial to our enemies. So, yeah, that changes it for me. I don't know if it does for you, but anyway, a review of the material Snowden compromised makes clear that he handed over secrets that protect American troops overseas and secrets that provide vital defenses against terrorists and nation states. Some of Snowden's disclosures exacerbated and accelerated existing trends that diminish the intelligence community's capabilities to collect against legitimate foreign intelligence targets, while others resulted in the loss of intelligence streams that had saved American lives. Snowden insists he has not shared the full cache of 1.5 million classified documents with anyone. However, in June 2016, the deputy chairman of the Russian Parliament's Defense and Security Committee publicly conceded that Snowden did share intelligence with his government. Additionally, although Snowden's professed objective may have been to inform the general public, the information he released is also available to Russian, Chinese, Iranian, and North Korean government intelligence services, any terrorist with internet access, and many others who wish to do harm to the United States. Yeah, that's a problem, because if this is released and we see it, the whole world can see it. The full scope of the damage inflicted by Snowden remains unknown. Over the past 3 years, the IC and the Department of Defense have carried out separate reviews while differing methodologies of the damage Snowden caused. Out of an abundance of caution, DoD reviewed all 1.5 million documents Snowden removed. Wow, that would have been a huge job. The IC, by contrast, has carried out a damage assessment for only a small subset of the documents. The committee is concerned that the IC does not plan to assess the damage of the vast majority of documents Snowden removed. Nevertheless, even by conservative estimate, the U.S. government has spent hundreds of millions of dollars and will eventually spend billions to attempt to mitigate the damage Snowden caused. These dollars would have been better spent on combating America's adversaries in an increasingly dangerous world. Or they could have been perhaps spent on our crumbling infrastructure. Anyway, second, Snowden was not a whistleblower. Under the law, publicly revealing classified information does not qualify someone as a whistleblower. However, disclosing classified information that shows fraud, waste, abuse, or other illegal activity to the appropriate law enforcement or oversight personnel, including to Congress, does make someone a whistleblower and affords them with critical protections. Contrary to his public claim that he notified numerous NSA officials about what he believed to be illegal intelligence collection, the committee found no evidence that Snowden took any official effort to express concerns about U.S. intelligence activities, legal, moral, or otherwise, to any oversight officials within the U.S. government, despite numerous avenues for him to do so. Snowden was aware of these avenues. His only attempt to contact an NSA attorney revolved around a question about the legal precedence of executive orders, and his only contact to the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, Inspector General, revolved around his disagreements with his managers about training and retention of information technology specialists. Despite Snowden's later public claim that he would have faced retribution for voicing concerns about intelligence activities, the committee found that laws and regulations in effect at the time of Snowden's action afforded him protection. The community routinely receives disclosures from IC contractors pursuant to the Intelligence Committee Whistleblower Protection Act of 1998. If Snowden had been worried about possible retaliation for voicing concerns about NSA activities, he could have made a disclosure to the committee. He did not, nor did Snowden remain in the United States to face the legal consequences of his actions, contrary to the tradition of civil disobedience he professes to embrace. Instead, he fled to China and Russia, two countries whose governments place scant value on their citizens' privacy or civil liberties, and whose intelligence services aggressively collect information on both the United States and their own citizens. That's a good point, isn't it? It's a very good point, because, he's so worried about our privacies, and yet he doesn't remain in the United States, but he flees to China and Russia, two of the worst offenders. Okay, just one second here. To gather the files he took with him when he left the country for Hong Kong, Snowden infringed on the privacy of thousands of government employees and contractors. He obtained his colleagues' security credentials through misleading means, abused his access as a systems administrator to search his co-workers' personal drives, and removed the personally identified information of thousands of IC employees and contractors. From Hong Kong, he went to Russia, where he remains a guest of the Kremlin to this day. It is also not clear Snowden understood the numerous privacy protections that govern the activities of the IC. He failed basic annual training for NSA employees on Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and complained the training was rigged to be overly difficult. This training included explanations of the privacy protections related to the PRISM program that Snowden would later disclose. Interesting. He failed basic annual training for NSA employees. Interesting. Third, 2 weeks before Snowden began mass downloads of classified documents, he was reprimanded after engaging in a workplace spat with NSA managers. Snowden was repeatedly counseled by his managers regarding his behavior at work. For example, in June 2012, Snowden became involved in a fiery email argument with a supervisor about how computer updates should be managed. Snowden added an NSA senior executive Snowden added an NSA senior executive several levels above the supervisor to the email thread, an action that earned him a swift reprimand from his contracting officer for failing to follow the proper protocol for raising grievances through the chain of command. And, if any of you have worked in the corporate environment, and of course this is not corporate, this is, a little different than that, but there's always a chain of command that you have to follow, always. And you're able to go above if you don't get a resolution, you take it to the next, and then you elevate it to the next, and you elevate it to the next. But you have to follow that chain of command. And I know with any corporate job, you get fired for not following the chain of command. So that is a big deal. 2 weeks later, Snowden began his mass downloads of classified information from NSA networks. Despite Snowden's later claim that the March 2013 congressional testimony of Director of National Intelligence James Clapper was a breaking point for him, these mass downloads predated Director Clapper's testimony by 8 months. Oh, I didn't know that. Did you? Maybe you did. Fourth, Snowden was and remains a serial exaggerator and fabricator. A close review of Snowden's official employment records and submissions reveals a pattern of intentional lying. He claims to have left Army basic training because of broken legs when in fact he washed out because of shin splints. He claimed to have obtained a high school degree equivalent when in fact he never did. He claimed, wow, I didn't realize that. He doesn't even have a high school degree. I know he's a very smart man, but I didn't realize that. He claimed to have worked for the CIA as a senior advisor, which was a gross exaggeration of his entry-level duties as a computer technician. He also doctored his performance evaluations and obtained new positions at NSA by exaggerating his resume and stealing the answers to an employment test. Wow. Wow. In May 2013, Snowden informed his supervisor that he would be out of the office to receive treatment for worsening epilepsy. In reality, he was on his way to Hong Kong with stolen secrets. Wow. That's just almost unbelievable. Finally, the committee remains concerned that more than 3 years after the start of the unauthorized disclosures, NSA and the IC as a whole have not done enough to minimize the risk of another massive unauthorized disclosure. Although it is impossible to reduce the chance of another Snowden to zero, more work can and should be done to improve the security of the people and computer networks that keep America's most closely held secrets. For instance, a recent DoD Inspector General report directed by the committee found that NSA has yet to effectively implement its post-Snowden security improvements. The committee has taken actions to improve IC information security in the Intelligence Authorization Acts for fiscal years 2014, 15, 16, and 17, and looks forward to working with the IC to continue to improve security. So, and this is a table of contents. Again, I'm certainly not going to read all this. And I will put the link to it in the description so that you can access it yourself and read it if you wish to do so. It's very interesting, and just going through here, there are some very interesting tidbits of information. Let me see. Basically, you know, in those points that I just went over, it's summarizing, it's taking all this information and summarizing it, but it's still worth reading it through. Like it even goes through like when he was born, 1983 in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, his parents. Like it's very interesting information. By his own account, Snowden was a poor student. He dropped out of high school in his sophomore year and began taking classes at local community college. Okay, so he does. Snowden hoped that the classes would allow him to earn a general education diploma, but nothing the community found indicates that he did so. To the contrary, on an applicant resume submitted to NSA in 2012, Snowden indicated that he graduated from Maryland High School in 2001. Earlier, in 2006, Snowden had posted on a public web forum that he did not have a degree of any type. I don't even have a high school diploma. It makes me wonder how he got a job, because I really don't know where you can work nowadays that doesn't require a high school education. I could be wrong, but I think maybe even Walmart. I don't know. But after leaving community college, Snowden eventually enlisted in the Army Reserve as Special Forces recruit. He left after 5 months, receiving a discharge in September 2004 without finishing training courses. Snowden would later claim he had to leave basic training because he broke both his legs in a training accident. An NSA security official the committee interviewed took a different view, telling committee staff that Snowden was discharged after suffering from shin splints, a common overuse injury. And I really don't know why somebody would lie about that, because I don't think that there's any uh, shame in having a medical condition. Shin splints are very, very painful. I don't know. Why would he lie about that? Unable to pursue his preferred military career, Snowden turned to security guard work. In February 2005, the University of Maryland Center for Advanced Study of, and this has all the, it's all footnoted and documented, and citations are given, so it's very good. Language sponsored Snowden for a top secret security clearance. Wow. The investigation for that clearance turned up only one piece of derogatory information. Something of Snowden's said she did not recommend him for access to classified information. Snowden sought counseling, blah, 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 and the counselor recommended him for a position of trust with no reservations. The favorable investigation, combined with a successful polygraph test, enabled Snowden to work at CASL lobby reception desk as a security specialist. He worked there for 4 months until he was hired by BAE Systems to work on a CIA Global Communications Services contract. Wow. It kind of makes me wonder, I don't know, it's a very odd story. It's a very, very odd story, if you ask me, how Snowden ended up in the position that he was in. Sure, okay, he lied, he exaggerated, whatever, but how did he end up in that position? You would think that people would be properly vetted before given jobs where they had access to national, items of importance to national security. Snowden was not, as he would later claim, a senior advisor at CIA. Rather, his only position as a CIA employee was as a telecommunications information systems officer, or TISO? I don't know how they pronounce that. Obviously, it's an acronym, but the job description, the job description, first day with the new lips. I'm just kidding. The job description for a TISO makes clear that the position is an entry-level IT support function. Entry-level IT support function. Not a senior executive. TISOs operate, maintain, install, and manage telecommunication systems and provide project management and systems integration for voice and data communication systems, including support to customers after installation. Even so, the position may have appealed to Snowden because TISOs typically spend 60 to 70% of their career abroad. In November 2006, less than 3 months after starting with CIA, Snowden contacted the agency inspector general seeking guidance because he felt he was being unfairly targeted by his supervisor. After entering on duty, Snowden believed there were morale and retention issues among his fellow TISOs. He raised these concerns with his training supervisor, the chief of communications training unit, but felt they were left unaddressed. He next tried the chief and deputy of his operational group, but was similarly dissatisfied. Oh my gosh. I don't know what, I'm tripping all over myself. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else in here there's lots of interesting things. I just don't want to belabor this. Despite his lack of experience, a 23-year-old Snowden told deputy director he felt pretty disenfranchised because his immediate supervisors did not take his unsolicited recommendations to heart. Well, that's pretty much the same in any organization. You might have wonderful ideas, but those over you may not, and sometimes they're jealous. I've seen cases of that where an underling may be actually more intelligent than their supervisor, and so the supervisor keeps a boot on their neck, so to speak. Snowden told the IG that after he contacted the deputy director for support, his supervisors pulled him into their offices for unscheduled counseling. In his view, they were extremely hostile and seemed to believe I have trouble bonding with my classmates. Those counseling sessions prompted Snowden to contact the IG to help protect him from reprisal for speaking truth to power. I really wouldn't call that, hey, didn't Q say that very phrase? Truth to power? Speaking truth to power? I'm almost 100% sure he did. And I think that's interesting. Q has access to all this, I'm sure. Well, obviously, if we do, he does. He, she, they. One day after receiving his complaint, an IG employee responded to Snowden and recommended he contact the CIA's ombudsman, an official who could help Snowden sort through the options available to him and mediate disputes between managers and employees. The IG employee also directed Snowden to the relevant agency regulation regarding the factors managers could consider when deciding to retain an employee beyond their initial 3-year trial period. Whether that response satisfied Snowden is unclear. Shortly after receiving it, Snowden sent another message to the IG employee instructing him to disregard the initial request because the issue had been addressed. During the rest of the time at CIA, Snowden did not contact the IG. After the completion of his training, Snowden was assigned to in March 2007 for his first TISO assignment. Snowden was, in the words of his supervisor, an energetic officer with a plethora of experience on Microsoft operating systems, but he often does not positively respond to advice from more senior officers, does not recognize the chain of command, often demonstrates a lack of maturity, and does not appear to be embracing the CIA culture. That could be a problem. Yeah, I mean, in any organization you're in, you're going to have to learn to get along with the people you work with, receive any criticism or helpful or otherwise from your senior advisors or officers, and respect the chain of command. So anyway, a few months after starting in Snowden asked to apply for a more senior position in as regional communications officer. His supervisor did not endorse his application. When he was not selected for the position, Snowden responded by starting a controversial email exchange with very senior officers, in which he questioned the selection board's professional judgment. Years later, when characterizing his experience as a CIA TISO, Snowden would write that he was specially selected by CIA's executive leadership team for a high-visibility assignment that required exceptionally wide responsibility. The description is in tension with his supervisor's account of a junior officer who needed more experience before transitioning to such a demanding position. Very interesting. Snowden also modified CIA's performance review software in connection with his annual performance review by manipulating the font. This behavior led to Snowden's recall for professional consultations with the head of all CIA technical officers in Europe. This was the first, but not the only time more senior CIA officers attempted to correct Snowden's behavior. His supervisor in cataloged 6 counseling sessions between October 2007 and April 2008, nearly 1 per month, regarding his behavior at work. In September 2008, Snowden requested to leave short of tour, that is, before his scheduled rotation date to a new assignment. The request was denied. Disobeying orders, Snowden traveled back to the Washington, D.C. area for his and his fiance's medical appointments. Because of his disobedience, Snowden's supervisors recommended that he not return to wherever. Yeah, this is very interesting stuff. I just wanted to go through some of the CIA experience because it's been grossly exaggerated, and it's not at all what I thought. Not at all. In January 2009, CIA submitted a fitness for duty report for Snowden, an administrative tool to determine whether Snowden had any work-related medical issues. The agency also assigned him to a position in the Washington, D.C. area so he could be available for any medical appointments. Several years later, Snowden claimed that while in wherever, he had ethical qualms about working for the CIA. I don't believe that his qualms were ethical. I really don't. Because if they had been, he wouldn't have been stealing things that put our military in harm's way, and stealing information, all this private information from the computers of his fellow workers. Yeah, I didn't know that that was the nature of what he had stolen. So, none of the memorandum for the recording detailing his numerous counseling sessions mentions Snowden expressing any concerns about whatever. Neither the CIA, IG, nor any other CIA intelligence oversight officials or manager has a record of Snowden expressing any concerns about the legality or morality of CIA activities. So then he transitions to the NSA contractor. Around the same time that Snowden returned to DC area, he applied for a position with an NSA contractor, Perot Systems, as a systems administrator. He was still a CIA employee at the time, and his clearance remained in good standing with no derogatory information. On March 25, 2009, Perot Systems sponsored Snowden for employment. 6 days later, on March 31st, NSA Security checked the intelligence community-wide security database, Scattered Castles, to verify Snowden's clearance. Seeing no derogatory information in Scattered Castles, NSA Security approved Snowden for access 8 days later on April 7th. Well, and you really can't fault them on that. I mean, if they're going based on, information that the CIA holds and there's nothing derogatory in there, then, yeah. On April 16th, Snowden formally resigned as a CIA employee. CIA's security office updated his Scattered Castles record on April 20. And then we've got some redacted things. Because NSA had checked the database 3 weeks earlier, NSA security did not learn of the whatever in his record at that time. It is unclear if NSA security would have treated Snowden's onboarding any differently had NSA been aware of, and it's redacted. So, and this goes through his work for the NSA. From May 2009 to February 2012, he worked in a variety of roles supporting IC contracts for Dell, which had purchased Perot Systems in 2009. He worked as an IT systems administrator at NSA sites in wherever for a little more than a year, where he supported NSA's Agency Extended Information System Services access contracts. One co-worker recalled that while he was working in wherever, Snowden traveled to Thailand to learn how to be a ship's captain, but never finished the training course. That seems to be a trend with him. According to another co-worker, at some point before he was stationed in wherever, Snowden took a trip to China and spoke about his admiration for the Chinese people and Chinese martial arts. The same co-worker remembered Snowden expressing his view that the U.S. government had overreached on surveillance and that it was illegitimate for the government to attain data on individuals' personal computers. There are no indications of how Snowden attempted to square this belief with his continued employment in support of the Foreign Signals Intelligence mission of NSA. And isn't it interesting that he admired China, who has probably the worst human rights abuse record. Anyway, other co-workers from Snowden's time in wherever recalled him as someone frustrated with the lack of access to information. One remembered Snowden complaining how he lacked access at CIA. Another recalled him attempting to gain access to information about the war in Iraq that was outside of his job responsibilities. Although Snowden did not obtain the information he was looking for, he later claimed it was typical of the U.S. government to cover up embarrassing information. It kind of crosses my mind if when he went to China, if he was shopping information at that time. Because he takes a trip to China, he's employed by the NSA, and he's speaking, about his admiration for the Chinese people and Chinese martial arts. Okay. But I just wonder, I don't know, it crosses my mind if he was shopping at that time looking for someone that might be interested in receiving the data he could get or possibly had at that time. I don't know. Other co-workers from Snowden's time in wherever recalled him as someone, okay, we already read that, sorry. In September 2010, Snowden returned to the United States and Dell attempted to move him to a position where he would support IT systems at CIA. Because of the whatever in Scattered Castles, however, CIA refused to grant Snowden access to its information. Dell put Snowden on leave for 3 months while waiting for a position that did not require a security clearance to open up. Eventually, one did. In December 2010, Snowden started working for an uncleared systems engineer pre-sales technical role for Dell supporting a CIA contract. Snowden, Snowden was also due for a periodic background reinvestigation in the fall of 2010. OPM contractor U.S. Information Services completed that review in May 2011, finding no derogatory information. According to an after-the-fact review by the National Counterintelligence Executive, the reinvestigation was incomplete and did not present a complete picture of Mr. Snowden. Among its other flaws, the investigation never attempted to verify Snowden's CIA employment or speak to his CIA supervisors, nor did it attempt to independently verify Snowden's self-report of past security violation, areas where further information could have alerted NSA to CIA's concern. Contrary to best practices, the investigation also failed to develop any character references beyond the 2 people Snowden himself listed, his mother and his girlfriend. Wow. I don't even think you could get away with listing your mother and your girlfriend on an application at Walmart. I mean, I don't think you could. Wow. I've never listed my mother or a boyfriend as a personal reference. Interesting. Okay. From August 31st, 2011 to January 11th, 2012, Snowden took a leave of absence from Dell. His Dell co-workers offered conflicting accounts of how he spent his leave. This video is already really long, and there's so much in here. I'm going to put the link to this, and because it even his downloading and removal process. Snowden used several methods to gather information on NSA networks, none of which required advanced computer skills. At first, Snowden used blunt tools to download files en masse from NSA networks. 2 non-interactive downloading tools, commonly known as scraping tools, called wget and Down Them All, were available on NSA classified networks for legitimate system administrator purposes. Both tools were designed to allow users to download large amounts of files over slow or unstable network connections. Snowden used the 2 tools with a list of website addresses, sometimes writing simple programming scripts to generate the lists. Wow. For instance, if NSA websites were set up in numerical order, i.e. page 1, 2, 3, and so on, Snowden programmed a script to automatically collect the pages. Neither scraping tool targeted areas of potential privacy or civil liberties concern. Rather, Snowden downloaded all information from internal NSA networks and classified web pages of other international community elements. Yeah. Exceeding the access required to do his job, Snowden next began using the system's administrator privileges to search across other NSA employees' personal network drives and copy what he found on their drives. Snowden also enlisted his unwitting colleagues to help him, asking several of his co-workers for their security credentials so he could obtain information they could use. So he could obtain information they could access, but he could not. One of these co-workers subsequently lost his security clearance and resigned from NSA employment. So obviously he talked somebody into doing it. Snowden infringed the privacy of at least, NSA personnel by searching their network drives without their permission, removing a copy of any documents he found to be of interest. And then Snowden's searches quickly expanded beyond surveillance programs. Some of the personal network drives Snowden searched belonged to individuals involved in the hiring decisions for a job for which Snowden had applied. Of these individual network drives, Snowden searched for human resource files and files related to the promotion and hiring decisions. Snowden first saved the information he gathered on his personal network drive. At some point in 2012, a fellow systems administrator noticed that Snowden's personal drive had used a significantly larger amount of memory than most other employees and asked him what he was doing. Snowden responded that he was downloading system patches for NSA networks, a task that was consistent with his job responsibilities. In late August 2012, Snowden requested a thin-on-thick machine for his desk. At the time, NSA Hawaii was in the middle of transition from thick elements, physical desktop computers at each worker's desk, to thin clients, virtual desktops hosted on servers. On a thin client, there is no traditional desktop computer at workers' desks. Rather, each user has a client that provides a display and input with computing processors, memory, and storage. Is that really important? Because the thin-on-thick setup opened up a loophole for Snowden to exploit. Snowden knew NSA's network recorded and logged every action by users on thick client workstations while connected to the network. He also knew that auditioning controls, and all of this is redacted, there is no evidence that NSA was aware of this specific vulnerability to its networks. Because Snowden's legitimate work responsibilities involved transferring large amounts of data between different SharePoint servers, the large quantities of data he copied as step one of the exfiltration process did not trigger any NSA alerts for abnormal network traffic. So, and it's just going through, what he did, how he gained more access, really quite fascinating. And I don't think it goes into, wow, this is interesting. While on a trip to NSA headquarters at Fort Meade in June 2012, Snowden visited a training officer in the Internal Oversight and Compliance Office of the Signals Intelligence Directorate. The training officer remembered that Snowden was upset because he had failed NSA's internal training course on how to handle information collected under FISA, Section 702, the legal authority by which the government can target the communications of non-U.S. persons outside the United States. The internal training is a rigorous computer-based course that walks NSA employees and contractors through the laws and regulations that govern proper handling information collected under the authority of FISA. Okay, blah, 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 blah. After 3 failures of the computer-based course, the individual must attend an in-person training course to ensure they are able to understand the rules governing Section 702, including privacy protections. According to the training officer, Snowden had failed the computer-based training course and was afraid of the consequences. He was also upset because he believed the course was rigged. After the training officer explained to Snowden that he could take the course again and that careful reading would allow him to find all of the answers to the test, Snowden became calm and left the Oversight and Compliance Office. At no point during this visit to the Compliance Office did Snowden raise any concerns about how NSA used Section 702, PRISM, or upstream collection. So, and it goes through whether he was a whistleblower, and no, he does not qualify as a whistleblower. So, just go through here and see if anything else. What did Snowden take? Now that's a good question. In light of the volume at stake, it is likely that even Snowden does not know the full contents of all 1.5 million documents he removed. One thing that is clear, however, is that the intelligence community documents disclosed in public are merely the tip of the iceberg. As of August 19, 2016, press outlets had published or referenced whatever, taken by Snowden. This represents less than 0.1% of the nearly 1.5 million documents that the international community assesses Snowden removed. The 1.5 million documents came from two classified networks, an internal NSA network called NSA-Net and an IC-wide top secret sensitive compartmentalized information network called Joint Warfighter Information Computer System. If printed out and stacked, these documents would create a pile more than 3 miles high. Wow. What damage did he cause? Well, over the past 3 years, the intelligence community and the Department of Defense have carried out separate reviews with differing methodologies of the contents of all 1.5 million documents Snowden removed. It is not clear which of the documents Snowden removed are in the hands of a foreign government. All of the documents have been publicly disclosed, can be accessed by foreign militaries and intelligence services as well as the public. And that's true. I mean, by making this stuff public, our enemies can view it as well. Yeah. Out of an abundance of caution, Department of Defense therefore reviewed all 1.5 million documents to determine the maximum extent of the possible damage. Now, could you imagine having to review 1.5 million documents? And could you imagine what we had to pay out in man hours? As a nation, we had to pay their salaries, right, for them to do that. I mean, this is costing the taxpayers a lot of money. As of June 2016, the most recent DoD review identified 13 high-risk issues, which are identified in the following table. 8 of the 13 relate to whatever capabilities of DoD. If the Russian or Chinese governments have access to this information, American troops will be at greater risk in any future conflict. Yep. And here is the table, but it's all redacted. So I think from that's it for the most part. I mean, there is a lot of information in here that I didn't, touch on, and a lot of this further down is redacted. So anyway, I'll leave the link to this in the description, and you can make up your own mind whether Snowden is a white hat or a black hat. I would say personally that he is a black hat, and I don't think that he removed this information for the good of the American people. I don't believe that anymore. So I'm welcome, your comments and whatever are welcome, and you don't have to agree with me. In fact, I think it's kind of nice sometimes when people disagree with me, because I often learn new things that way. So anyway, thanks so much. I'll probably be back with another video this evening, and of course I will be back if Q posts. So I'll talk to you guys later, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.